Yeah.
Okay, we're back in open session at 6:21 p.m. Regular session, sorry. That first is our consent agenda. Is there a motion to consider?
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented. I'll second that motion.
Any discussion?
Hey,
Or,
Laura, can you admit people?
Laura, the roll call vote.
Jamie,
Yes.
Russ,
Yes.
Soren,
Yes.
Christine.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
Okay, reports, first up, superintendent report and K-12 principal report.
Okay, let me comment. Or we have Patriot comment.
Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry.
I was
No.
like, hold on, we're.
I just kept. Patron, or do we have?
I do not have any.
Okay, thank you guys. Okay, first up report, superintendent K-12 reports.
So Laura, will you text Dawn and tell him to head this way? So I'm gonna start with the K-12 principal report. We're just ending, we're getting ready for the end of the year. We forecasted for 7-12 for next year. So we're working on our master schedule. We've done our student of the month. Nothing is working for me now. We had a couple field trips. We had an OMSI Science Festival, which I wasn't able to make. Did you make it? How was it?
This study is really neat. There's a vast variety of everything Jimmy came to. Especially I think for myself, appreciate not having to drive to Portland to have some of that introduction to our students. It's a long drive and it's an expensive place to visit. So Miss Littlefield shared with us also that they're looking into opportunities for summer camps. I don't know if that's going to happen or not, but they're looking into the opportunity of that and investigating what that would look like for our community and our kids, which I just think is outstanding. So it was great. I didn't like yard my kid away from.
And it was quite a long session, but that's what they offered. And based on what I'd heard from Miss Littlefield, that it was pretty well attended from 5 to 8. We had prom, it was great. We had all but 9 of our students in the high school showed up.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it was great. They had a great time. We hosted kindergarten roundup. We think we'll get 8 kindergartners for next year. That's our hope. And then in speaking with the preschool, the year after, they're looking at between 10 and 12. So I think we're going to start seeing that enrollment rise. Based on some conversations I had with community members, we're just kind of in that little lull right now. But I've been told by a couple of people that we have a very large number of 4 and under kids right now. So, and we'll talk about it during our financial report. We need to have that W piece on that. And then we've just done some after school programming. I think I told you all we received a grant from the Benton Community Foundation. We've done pottery with Mr. Lynch, culinary with Mr. Taylor, and Miss Ellis has been doing choir. Our goal is to continue these next year and even offer more for students to have. And then some upcoming important dates for everybody for seniors. And I wanted to give these to you so you can put them on your calendar. You should have received an email today from Miss Ellis about the senior banquet, which is May 28th at 6 p.m. I hope you all can make that. It's a very interesting and awesome thing for our seniors. And then graduation is June 6th at 7 p.m. And I will, when we get closer to graduation, I'll give you all an email about what it'll look like. We have air conditioning this year, so we won't sweat ourselves off the stage.
Lori, I'll be sitting with me and my wife. You sent me that email for the board, but I'll do it down. So.
Okay. I wanted to go over my super report. There's a couple things, and we met with OD today, and so I'll speak to one of it when Mr. Staley gets up there. But facilities, so work was supposed to begin on the football field this week, and then it rained. And so we are going to work on it. It's actually going to start next week. We have to remove the existing grass. So we're going to do that next week. And then the week after Labor Day is when they're going to come in and scrape the field down. Our hope is during this work, we can also get rid of the moles. Because we're going to literally pack stuff down, put new dirt on top of it. So our hope is that we'll be able to do that and be able to set up some things along that route to get rid of those. And then we're gonna hydro seed it. So hydro seeding, once we get the hydro seed in, we are gonna water it tremendously over the summer. We are actually not going to host, if I remember correctly, and I don't know if Mr. Harris is on there, but we are not gonna host football games for like the first 4 weeks of the season because we really want to make sure the grass is really taken. And then, as I said, we purchased that water wheel, that will help with actually time and efficiency of staff. And then in addition to the field work this summer we're gonna replace both the windows in the library offices because they need to be replaced. We're gonna re-roof the high school modular because we had a roofer come out through Todd. And he kind of gave us a quick look and said, but that one over there has to be replaced this summer. So Mr. Albers will be working on that. We are repairing and painting the grandstands. We're actually gonna work with the summer work crew. They're gonna spend 2 weeks here at Alsea, and they're going to work with their work crew leader on redoing, like repairing and repainting the grandstands. And then just some general ground maintenance along with deep cleaning of classroom offices and hallways. The summer learning grant, we were selected as a recipient of the summer learning grant. I don't know if you've all kind of read in the newspaper exactly what it is, but it wasn't like, here's money, do what you want. It was, here's money, now create a plan that includes an emphasis on literacy, and it has to be 80 instructional hours. And you have to make sure that you're feeding them breakfast and lunch. And so because of that, I actually turned it down because I only would have a week and a half to write that application. I reached out to Corvallis to see if we could partner, and I reached out to Philomath. Both of those districts did not get that grant, but they were going to run summer programs. And I was like, hi, Mr. Nuss and Ms. Halliday, I need 80 hours of instructional. And they're like, sorry, we're only doing 45. And then, being able to also feed them. Our kitchen, if you guys remember correctly, that whole wall where the sink is going to be completely torn up. And so what we talked about was more than likely Alsea will get this grant for next summer. They're going to tell us in October. So then we will really be able to build the program. But, one of the big pushes and a lot of superintendents, and I'm one that feels this way, if you're going to ask for 80 hours of instructional hours, you might as well just make the school year longer. And everybody gets it because not everybody gets this grant. And so, like I said, I'm expecting us to get it next year. We will know in October, which will then allow us to be able to build a more robust program. Right now, and I do believe it is for the biennium, it is heavily required to be on literacy. So even if you do field trips, you still have to show literacy. You have to show a pre and a post test and growth, and you have to hire certified teachers. And so it's quite an expansive, and that is how the law is written. We did, however, and we were invited last week to apply for Oregon's Comprehensive Literary Development Grant. This grant is a competitive grant, it's federally funded. Not all schools, I believe only 100 school districts in the state of Oregon were invited to apply. And we were one of them. This grant is up to $750,000 over 4 years. So Mrs. Shunk and I are going to work together to write this grant to see if we can get it. We're in talks with a couple of other districts and just together about what we can do to help our literacy. And unfortunately, how you qualify for this grant is your literacy scores are not spectacular. You look at your data over time, and that's what it is. And so our goal with this grant is to really create a systematic approach in getting our system K through 12. And even there's preschool component to it, a pre-K through 12 system in which reading is taught in a way that is consistent and comprehensive across the board, which is something that I think we would truly benefit from. And so we actually have until June 30th to write this grant. And so we're committed to submitting a strong proposal. And I put on there the website if you guys want to read more about it. Mr. Roberts and I are meeting with the representative from the Russ grant. We have gotten the grant. We are ready to purchase the stuff. And it's ready to be installed this summer. So there will be new laptops for all teachers, a new video system for a library. So we're gonna set this up so even meetings are a little bit more accessible. All TV monitors for classrooms, we're upgrading from 75-inch to 86 inches. And then we're gonna get the telehealth cart. We're having approximately a $20,000 match, which is in our budget to do. And then they're gonna do a walkthrough of our building tomorrow, actually. And then we're gonna start getting stuff ordered, and the next fall we'll have a system, and my goal is to really use that system to bring in more classes for our high school students, especially for college level and due credit, but also to give our elementary kids more experiences to experience perhaps other classrooms through video systems like that.
Is it okay at this point to ask a question or
Please.
save it for the end? I'd like to make note for the record on that telehealth cart that I would love to see a robust discussion over parental notification and policy.
Yep. And one of the things we talked about is it more than likely will not be implemented next year because we were unable to start, the superintendent who was starting the conversations with, I don't remember which exact system no longer is in that role in Central Lynn. And so we would work together as a consortium again to try to find that piece. And so it might be that perhaps we work with, is it, who does
County
that?
Health Department.
And maybe that's one way, I know they're only coming out once a week, but maybe this is another way to get maybe another day or two, not only for our kids, but for the community in some capacity. But I don't disagree with you, Jamie. I think that has to have that conversation.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
and I think we did discuss that a little bit.
We did.
First talked about. things.
Yeah.
Yeah, but just
Yeah.
knowing that it's happening,
Mhm.
I want to make sure that we make that a priority.
Yep.
Please.
I am going to put off number 5 because we actually did talk to ODE today and we have some handouts. And we're gonna talk, Mr. Staley and I will talk about data across the board, especially the conversation's gonna start in 2021. And talk about how that data really affected now. And then we're gonna talk because in our conversations today, we found another piece, but actually it works in our favor.
Thank goodness.
Yeah. And then so he'll explain to you kind of that piece. And one thing I do want to really emphasize to everybody is that when we talk about school financing, this is not like we don't have hard numbers. These numbers are changing because we work on estimates now, but actuals 2 years and 2 years ago. And so really what we're trying to do is do our very best. And we rely on Oregon Department of Education and other districts to submit correct data. And some of this is because other districts aren't submitting data and reports when they should. So we're not able to get accurate estimates. And this is kind of one of these pieces where our history somewhat works against us, but then we have other districts who are not getting data to ODE in time.
If they lowered the amount of required data, do you think they would get better and more timely data?
Mr. Staley said no.
Sorry. Not.
How can you?
No, I meant ODE.
ODE.
ODE. if they-
Okay.
We'll discuss that
Mhm.
on Thursday.
But after we met with them today, we had a discussion about communication. I think we all are we understand a little bit more. They understand where we're coming from. And I think they understand our needs as school districts. Mr. Staley spoke with somebody at ODE that he's known for years, and I think they really got our point. So I'm gonna put that off till he gets here, and then I have handouts for you all. We did the risk management inspection. So this came about because starting next year, all school districts in Oregon are required to carry a sexual abuse and misconduct insurance policy, which used to be combined in our main insurance policy, but now it is not. Mostly because they're finding that claims against school districts for sexual abuse and misconduct, tort claims cap off in the state of Oregon at 2 million. These claims have actually been going up to 3.5 million. So now everybody is required to carry on this insurance. Well, our insurance agent said, well, I want to come out. I don't think they've done actually a risk management inspection of our school district in Laura, it's been years, right?
2 years ago.
2 years. So they do it every 2 years, and he wanted to do one for a set, like an inspection of like, what's the risk that you have? You know, where's places that those types of the sexual abuse and misconduct could occur. So during this time, he walked through with Laura, and it helped us identify potential safety concerns. They do it every 2 years, right? So some of the key findings, we actually did very well. He actually said we did very well, but some of the key findings were there was some daisy training of electronic devices that I actually didn't know about. Even though I walked through, I didn't see it. And proper storage of food items. So that was more pest management. He was like, come on. Organizational concerns in the shop and art classrooms and maintenance areas. Uncovered windows in certain areas. And then doors obstructed by debris or material. So as soon as we got this, Mr. Albers, Mr. Roberts, Laura and I sat down and we actually reviewed the report and developed a plan to address all the findings. And so some of the major ones there's 2 of them were addressed. They were considered critical, and it wasn't even critical. It was high of a major, and it was really quick and easy. We addressed them immediately, and then we made a priority list. And so I actually really like these inspections because they really are a point in time. I walk through classrooms every day and sometimes I just don't see it. And so this was great because this allowed us to also sit down with people in different rooms and say, okay, we're going to have to do these things. What do you need for help us with? Because this is unacceptable. And so I think this is really great to have other eyes too, because when you walk through things consistently, you miss stuff. So he came in and Nathan Cortez did. The one thing on the sexual abuse and misconduct walkthrough that he recommends for us is that all doors in this school have windows in them. So when you walk past them, you would never shut a door and have an adult and a student by themselves. Somebody can always see. So he recommends one, that all doors into classrooms or any place where students and adults can be have windows in them. And 2, if we have curtains on our windows, which we do, that those curtains are open at all times. Mostly because he said you want to be able to see in. And so those are something that Laura and Mr. Albers and I are working with. We're looking at grants for doors. And that was just something that they are recommending now in every single school building.
Door cost is significant.
It is, but that's why we're looking at Yes.
Maybe not super important, but I mean, they want curtains to not be closed on windows, but there's a problem with uncovered windows. Like what are they?
So uncovered means if you look at the old windows, and I probably didn't say this right. Look at the old doors that have the windows that have like the metal. If somebody, and tell me if I said this right, if they got broke, like let's say a kid was running and hit it, they could put their hand through and those wires would actually cut up. So we actually bought safety film to put on those windows to
that's what they
straighten
mean
them up. That's what I meant. I didn't say that
Nope,
correctly. I'm
that's
sorry.
fine. I clears it up. Thanks.
But he noticed that a lot of our doors in the elementary side on the outside have those windows. And he said, literally, it just takes a kid running, and if they hit it, that glass isn't strong enough, and it could actually, instead of stopping their hand, it would push their hand through. And I've actually seen in my previous school, we had those doors. Somebody slammed the door, and that window broke like that. So I'm sorry, I didn't say that correctly. So we have ordered the safety film for that, and that will go on.
Are our doors metal?
The ones outside, I believe, are not. The ones inside are. So the ones on the outside classrooms, I think, are actually wood. But I don't quote me on that. The ones inside are not. And then just an update on IIGBA discussion. Mr. Robertson and I met. We're going to meet one more time to kind of we looked at wording, rearrange, or kind of fit it to us. We're gonna meet one more time, and then I'm gonna send it to OSBA to see what they say, and then we'll bring it back at the June meeting. And then there was a question on purchasing, and so at the last meeting we talked about district purchasing, so policy DJ. Pretty much I put in there's a paragraph in there. So the board, excuse me, in this policy has delegated the superintendent to enter into an approved payment on contracts obliging district funds not to exceed $75,000. This is one of the lowest in the regions. However, I do believe prior to me that number was 10,000. It was moved up at the request of interim superintendent Gallagher. This is not standard. 75,000 is actually not standard. And from what I gathered, standard is 150,000, which is what most of our counterparts in this region have. I believe us and Sweet Home are at 75,000. Lebanon and Santiam Canyon actually don't give a dollar amount. They say whatever the money is appropriated, the superintendent has the ability to enter in a contract up to that amount. There was a question of the second sentence of the paragraph. I sent that off to OSBA Legal. The response she gave is in there as well.
I have a question.
Yes,
You mentioned that 5,000 isn't normal, that it's a little bit higher in most of our areas, even if it's not specified.
Uh-huh.
Do you feel as superintendent that 75,000 is hindering you from doing your job in the operations space?
I do not. I think we're a small enough district that we do not enter into tons of agreements, even above, I would say 50. So I do think 10,000 would hinder. If we went any lower, I would tell you though, if we went any lower than 75, let's say we went to 10,000, more than likely this board would have to have a meeting every week to approve. So we would have to have a board meeting.
Any other questions?
I had multiple questions on the IEP part, but I guess I will hold those.
Yes, because we now have a cute little, I don't wanna call it cute, but a more informative little thing.
And then I just had a comment about the literacy grant.
Mhm.
I looked at that and it said that when I look at the grants, 50% of it is your ranking and 50% of it is the narrative. And Elsie is 80 out of 100 on the ranking. We're not near the top. So I'm encouraging you to build a very strong narrative.
Appreciate that. They did say to us though, that the narrative would be one of the most important. So we are, Mrs. Shunk is a very eloquent writer. So we're gonna use her eloquency and my efficiency to hopefully make a very strong case for us to get this grant.
Do you, can I ask one more question? that
Yes.
relates to that grant? In some of our grant processes, you request board member, community or parent feedback or story.
Mhm.
Is it the grant in that space or no?
I'm not sure yet. We haven't, we just actually listened to a webinar last Thursday. And so we're gonna start diving in probably next week. We met with somebody, like I said, to talk about systemic system implementation K through or pre-K through 12. And then I've opened up the conversation with strengthening rural families because you have to have a kinder or pre-K partner. And then our goal would really be to start looking at our data, start looking at our systems, our curriculums, where our needs are, and building our grant off of that.
Can you let us know what advocacy you might need for this grant, if there is any after you learn more?
Yep.
Sorry,
Do
go
they
ahead, Jen.
specify science of reading or,
Specifically, the state says that any literacy program has to be science.
so does like an Orton Gillingham fall into a science of reading?
I'm not sure. I'd have to look into that. I'm sorry, I'm not. But it has to be science of reading based, yeah.
I think just going back to your last part, I'd just like to chat with you at some point about, I guess that second sentence still isn't really that clear because it doesn't fall under the 75,000. It falls under the board shall approve all contracts that are collective bargaining agreements or service contracts that include the provision of labor performed by district employees, which I think pertains to a prior conversation. So the fact that they say the statute doesn't define what a service contract is, but public contracting law, broader public contracting law services to mean services other than personal services and described as it would be a contract if supplies are provided, but employees are doing the work. So we don't need to get into that now. I just think for the coming years ahead, we need to come to agreement as a board and administration on whose authority lies over what.
Okay.
Because there's a period there, and then it says the board shall approve all contracts, not all contracts more than $75,000. So that's my concern.
Okay. And what, Russ, if I would ask you, could you maybe put it in an email and I could,
Yeah,
like, get a question
absolutely.
and then I could forward that again to
Sure.
our legal, and then maybe there's more they can get into, maybe a little bit more, and then we can
Yeah.
have that conversation.
Yeah, I mean,
Perfect.
we have time.
Yeah, we do. But no, I just want you, I want you to be able to get your question answered.
Well, I want it for me and I want it for everyone else,
Yes.
right? I wanna put this to bed once and for all.
Yes.
Not saying I'm on the right side or the wrong side, just.
No,
I think
clarity.
we need absolute clarity because this may not be the only time something comes up like this.
Yeah, so like I said, if-
Especially as we explore opportunities with projects we have to do,
Yeah.
trying to use people in the community or whatever. You know,
Yeah.
we just need to really know. The last thing we want as a board is for something under our purview
Mhm.
not to be approved by the board for your liability
Mhm.
or vice versa
Yeah.
for us to take authority away from you and put the liability on us. So
okay. And like I said, if you could drop me an email,
Yep.
so I know exactly, and then I'll forward that
Absolutely.
along, so I make sure we get that right. Okay. The monthly enrollment,
We're
I
up
think you're
to,
gonna move on.
okay,
we're up to
yes.
every year, every month. we're up
Yeah, so,
one or two.
and I'm gonna tell you, this is, I'm glad that we put this, in there, because the ADM is gonna be super important in our budget conversations as we move forward. So that is me, regular attenders. I'm gonna tell you, we're getting there, but it's still pretty a rough time. I think end of the year is tough. Remember, this is 90% or above, so anybody at 89.99 and below. We have a lot of kids in the 80% range. We do. We just gotta get them up.
Is there any thoughts about maybe changing up the incentive? Popcorn's been almost 2 full years now. Is there thoughts of
They've been doing popsicles.
Can we just
Getting a little more
Fridays
creative.
as a full attendance day for everyone? That'll make us equal to all the other districts.
Okay, so
Um,
that actually brings up a good point though, like we've had this 4-day week schedule for quite some time. And I don't think there's any appetite for changing the 4-day schedule, but is there an appetite for changing date? Like, do we see, I'm just, like,
No.
that's your purview completely, but I think in.
No, that wasn't what I was meaning. I was just meaning, if we're at a 90% threshold, the rest of the state, which most schools are on a 5-day school week. And the kids can miss 2 days a month, we're
Yeah.
at one where they can only miss one.
Mhm.
And it is hard with dentist appointments and
Yeah,
doctor's appointments to
absolutely.
have that just happen every month. Not just miss one day or half day. But anyway,
No, I
I'm
agree.
not saying we're balanced out by this. This doesn't affect our ADM stuff.
It does not affect, but what I will tell you is in the accountability part that is currently going through, it could be one of the pieces that we do get. And to go to your point, I don't disagree with the looking at days, because it's funny if you go, okay, we're gonna have Fridays to get to your appointment, you try to go to doctors and they're like, we're
They're all
only open
closed.
half day on Fridays, or we're
Right.
closed, and so it kind of
It's
feels,
just,
yeah.
it's just closed on Friday, yes.
So I mean, I could do some research to see what other districts do. Maybe some do like a Tuesday through Thursday and like, it's great. I don't know. I could bring that maybe next year. We can open up that conversation. But I think it's interesting that everybody's like, we have a day off to do our stuff. And then you go to the doctor's appointment and they're like, we're closed on Fridays. I'm like, well, I'll have to come on Mondays, which is the day we have.
maybe we switch to Mondays off instead of Fridays?
I think we were Monday and we went to Fridays. I think probably if we do look at that, we would a town hall with the community.
Yeah, we
really
need to talk about that. I mean, the only other thing is there are sporting events on Fridays.
Yeah, and
So
we
they
have a
would
long
miss-
distance to
yeah.
travel. I mean, it's really
Yeah.
hard, right?
I
Like,
can't, I don't have a perfect.
no, exactly.
No,
There is.
It's a tough one.
But let me tell you, as a parent of many children in this school, and somebody come, I like the 4-day school.
Yeah.
Well,
It's
although
advantageous.
it's sometimes harder to get kids to events on Fridays for sporting events because there isn't
Yeah.
school.
Right?
So
True that.
there's,
I wouldn't care if it was Mondays.
Yeah, I can look in, maybe next year, that'll be like something I can look into and research.
a survey.
Yeah, we could do like the community survey.
And maybe that's my recommendation or request, idea, thought, whatever, for like incentivizing the youth to be here. Maybe a survey of what
Yeah.
would the incentive,
Mhm.
what would bring you in? Would it be a movie card, a Dutch card,
Yeah.
And change it up a little?
Yeah, no, we'll definitely do that next year, but it's the end of the year. I mean,
Yeah.
hats off to the 10th graders. They're always here, and the same thing with the 8th graders. So, they're doing well, but I think we're sitting in the 80% range. We really need to just get up over that hump, but in general, not a bad deal. So, okay, that's all I
I just
got.
don't see how there's like the senior class. They're gonna start staying home at the end of the year. There's gonna be here in class.
Hey.
Or that people get this one all year.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, thank you for all of those. Next up, Ms. Shunk for Learn at Home Oregon.
All right. Hello everyone. Nice to see you. All right. For our update, we welcomed a lot of new friends into Learn at Home. Ms. Nira and I have created a partnership with almost like now 2 districts, I think, are working with us. I don't know how to explain this perfectly, but they are, how do I explain this, Ms. Nira? I want to make sure I get this right in terms of.
We do some ADM. So we are taking some students from other districts who they feel need to be online. And they pay us, actually, they keep the ADM, but they pay us to have them. And so we're providing their FAPE and we're providing services. So we're currently, and I think I talked about with the board, we're doing that with Eagle Point School District.
Is that full-time online then?
Yep.
Yeah.
And so it's something that just in person with Eagle Point, it just didn't work out well.
Yeah.
They bring them to us and they're in our school. And just as though if there was a student in our school that maybe online or in person didn't work, we would transition them with parents to online. So it's actually really nice to have that.
Okay, I'm really glad because that's exactly what I was going to say, but I just want to make sure I was getting that right. So yeah, we actually have a lot of students joining, and I meet with every parent and student before they are, transitioning into our school, because it's different when they have whatever issue that happened in their brick and mortar, distractions and all of that, what that looks like joining in mid-year successfully. So it's been really wonderful to welcome in all of these students, and I meet with them regularly and check in with the parents, and they are all commenting how different their children are at the end of the school day. So they're very happy, and it's a very positive shift for them. And what we're hoping and working towards is that they just stay with us, hopefully, and become our students. So that's really wonderful. We also had a beautiful lengthy report from one of our 3rd graders who is involved with 4-H in her local area, and she gave that report during our assembly. So that was the first time we had a student report during our live assembly, and that was really wonderful and inspiring to all of the students. And that's been something that I've been really pushing and getting a lot of information out there for, especially our online students, that gives them that in-person social piece. And there's so many lessons and wonderful things involved with 4-H. So I was really happy to see that. Our last meeting, we talked about growth data. And so that's what I focused on primarily for this report. I put in our iReady reading and math data, and obviously the percentages are not exactly where I would like them to be. And there's many factors with that. And I want to tell you a little bit of a story today. What we're noticing with online and iReady is kids want to race through it. And, there's all these factors. So we are going to up our information to families and how to use iReady strategically, how to be in proximity when their students are working through that, and that will help. But one thing that came up today was that we're in our 3rd diagnostic, and one of our teachers reached out and she said, oh, this 3rd grader went through and it said that she's a kindergartner that's totally wrong, or kindergarten at kindergarten level. And so I encouraged the teacher to, show the 3rd grader what happens. And so of course the 3rd grader said, oh yeah, I really want to do that again. I want to retake that, which they're able to do. And so we're just continuing to work on how to strategically implement iReady. Oh, sorry. We're working on how to strategically implement iReady so that we're using it in the most effective way. And then we go in and look at core phonics, which has been really wonderful for us. All of our teachers agree that they love the core phonics assessment. They've been working on that throughout the year, and they work directly with their students, and then they target the foundational skills with them. And I didn't add this on here. I left this out accidentally, but if you look at the 3rd like our spring diagnostic result data, that's exactly where it should be. It looks like it goes down in the report, but that's actually the number where it should be across the board. So we hit our mark with every single one of those data points. So I was really proud about that. The other piece is we are going to be focused heavily on our priority standards. Ms. Nira and I are working on that. Everything is going to be about our priority standards next school year. So our teachers are right now working through and creating notebooks that are aligned with our priority standards so that parents and students can track their progress in that at home. And those are going to be sent out to our students next year. So everything is very targeted, database and targeted for us. And I'm looking forward to what we are going to be doing next year. Any questions?
I have a question about the core phonics graph that's in here. I was
Yeah.
looking at those, I'm like, a couple of those categories really have low numbers. Then I looked at it, I was like, but what's a normal number, right? Those low numbers might be totally fine for that category.
Are you talking about like the vowel sounds?
Yes.
Yeah, you know, I apologize. It really should have had the number next to it. So like the bars that are low. Okay, so the bars that are high, it's like 26. The bars that are low are out of 5. And so we hit the mark. So the highest bar at the end, our third interval of that, we've hit the mark on all of that at 100%. And I apologize for that
My
confusion.
comment is, wow, tremendous growth over every trimester.
Yeah.
I think seeing that categorical growth means things are going well. So congratulations.
Thank you. I mean, we have a long way to go though, too. We can do
Oh,
better,
yeah,
but
absolutely.
it's been really wonderful for our teachers to go through this practice of collecting data and then using that data to target exactly what they're working with in small group and one-to-one with our students. So I'm really proud of them. And then also simultaneously, we're right at the end of our OSAS, our state testing, and we actually have 95% of our students participating. And OSAS online, doing this remotely is quite a mountain to climb, but we are doing it. And now we're just all experts in getting to the secure browser, and parents are highly involved because they have to proctor, they have to commit to proctoring right there. So it's a really neat process, and very proud of our students and their perseverance.
Question or comment?
Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Shunk.
Thank you. And thank you, Ms. Nerat, for helping me out with that first bit.
All right, up next is our athletics report by Mr. Harris.
Good evening. Whew. It's good to see everybody. Just wanted to give a shout out to our middle school track team. They've just been absolutely going crazy everywhere they go. Every time that it seems like I talk to Miss Hendricks, they PR'd this, they PR'd that, they winning the meets, and just really representing LC very well. So we're excited for that. And they do have a Oregon Meet of Champions this Friday. So we just want to wish them all the best and give a big shout out to Miss Hendricks. High school also headed to districts on the 22nd, 23rd. Portland Christian, looking forward to that. And then Mr. Roberts has taken them up there. So thank you, Mr. Roberts, for everything you've done with them this year. And then state championships will be the 29th and 30th following weekend. When I wrote this, baseball was going well. They're still going well. They've actually lost one game and won another game, and then I'm not sure how they did tonight yet. But they are doing well. Looking forward to some postseason play, most likely this year. So excited for them. We had to look at ordering new football uniforms. We've had our football uniforms for quite some time. They were in pretty bad shape. wasn't a high quality uniform that we bought. This year we got with Coach Cook and came up with some designs, and so we've ordered some new football uniforms for next year. We're excited for those. When we get them all here, there'll be 3 different sets of them. So we'll have white pants, blue pants, black pants, and then shirts to match those as well. So we're really excited about that. And I've been working with Miss Hendricks as well to get some volleyball. Actually, we looked at some mock-ups today for volleyball. And so we should be getting those ordered as well. So excited to just have some clean, nice uniforms starting this next year. Football schedule is done. Fairly competitive to start out this season. We'll be playing the number 1 and the number 2 teams from the 1A last year. So that'll be a good little tune-up for them. And then we'll get into league play. So that's on OSAA. Everybody can take a look at that. We do have the first game will be overnight at Powers. They're going to let us camp and feed us, and then we'll play them on Saturday, the following day, around 1. So that'll be a fun trip for them. We are starting next week on the field. It was supposed to start this week. We had some rain, so they had to postpone that. But I believe next week they're going to get started on it. Based on the timeline, it looks like maybe we won't have to schedule everything away for the first half of the season. But right now, that's kind of what we're looking at, just to make sure the grass has time to get established. But we're going to monitor that, because talking to Keenan sounded like maybe the hydro seed may take faster than, maybe what we're anticipating. So hopefully we'll just monitor that this summer. And then if we make any adjustments to the schedule for a couple more home games, then we'll do that as quick as possible. But have worked with the other ADs, so they know what situation we're in. And so if we do need to change, then they know that might be possible. So they've been good to work with. Volleyball schedule, it says it's complete. That should have said about complete, but all the league is up on OSAA. I've been working with Ricky to come up with some teams that we can play, give us a little bit more competition, stepping up into a little bit of the 2A stuff. We have a lot of 3-ways this year, which will be kind of good for everybody. So it should be a good volleyball season as far as competition and being able to come out and actually see some good volleyball. We do have, I think, Mana House of Portland is going to come and play a 3-way with us. So we're looking forward to something like that too. Big thing, this was kind of something that I took from the Athletic Directors Conference a couple of weeks ago. We had a speaker, and she was really, really just amazing. But one thing she left us all with was the need for sports bras. And so I was able to reach out to Sports Bras for Girls, and they were just delivered, I think, yesterday. But we got 130 or 40 free sports bras for all of our girls, for PE, for sports. If they need one, they've got them. They're all free. They're really high quality. So looking forward to that. I volunteered Ricky in front of that. So she's going to be handing those out. So, but if anybody has a need, it doesn't matter if it's sports, PE, just everyday use, whatever, let us know, because we've got a bunch of them. So we're excited to be able to sort of provide that equipment, to our girls at no charge. So, couple things. We will be having our PBIS committee meeting this Thursday. Looking forward to that, finalizing all the work that we've been doing there for next year for our elementary side. And then also we're going to be looking at a couple of things for maybe a small rebrand. It's nothing big, but something that we want to do to kind of work with the climate and culture of our school. Some of the things you were, discussing earlier about attendance and things like that. One thing that helps attendance is having school spirit, school pride, and really having an identity as a school. So I put on here mob info to come. So we're going to discuss some of that, and hopefully at the next board meeting, we'll be presenting some things to you guys that we hope you'll be excited about, and will see kind of the benefits of that stuff. So, we're also, Ms. Hendricks and I, we've been working with the leadership, and putting together some stuff for, student body council. We want to kind of bring that back. We've been, working, last couple of days on getting some bylaws put together so that we can present that to you guys, and make sure that we're, but we would really like to sort of put that kind of back together and give our students some opportunities in leadership, real leadership in our school, things like that. Last couple things. I'm going to do like a teacher assistant position next year for some juniors and seniors who are interested in becoming like maybe some assistant ADs. They'll work with me during that class time, just learning about leadership, preparing for events, what it takes to run an event, planning those kinds of things. May take them to maybe one of my AD meetings and let them sit around the table and listen to all these people talk about this stuff. And then also a captain's coalition. So the captains of our sports will be nominated by their team and by their head coaches, and then they'll meet with me a couple times a month. Another leadership opportunity for our kids to be involved with. So just looking forward to next year and all that. And if you guys have any questions for me, we'd be happy to answer them.
I have a question. I have recently seen an article of some discussion coming from OFAA about some reorg of leagues. Do you have any further information on that and how it might affect our district?
As far as the league, there's a couple of conversations as far as some playoff things where we're going to talk about. I have actually an AD meeting tomorrow, so we're going to actually be kind of looking at those proposals and then possibly voting on those. So there's a couple different ones, giving the top 8 teams buys and then letting the bottom 24 kind of fight it out, so you don't have a 32 team going to play a number 1. That's nobody's ever won that. So there's a lot of stuff we've been looking at. But as far as, oh, sorry.
The way I understood the article was some potential shifts in the actual teams within the districts to reduce the travel costs for travel and expenses. That's what I saw. Has that not been?
That hasn't gone through. They usually do, like, we already pretty much have our league set for next year. It would be the year after, but I know, like, I believe, Joe, tell me if I'm wrong, because I read some of the stuff, the delegate assembly is looking at that as well. Yeah, but that would have to be voted on by the executive board.
Yeah, and then it's also, it has a lot more to do with like the higher classes too, like the 4 and 5. There's a bunch of stuff there that I mean, I listened to some of it, but then I had to go to my 1A meeting, so I didn't get all of their information. But yeah, it's I like Krista said, it would be a year or two down the road, but right now everything's set. There was, though, going back to your point, there was statistics about, I think I showed to Krista today. There was like, average miles traveled by a school, like some of these kids are traveling 3,000 and 4,000 miles a season. It's, they're missing in upwards of 6 hours a week in school because of the travel. So that's definitely something that's playing a part in those conversations, I guess, and most likely will play something down the road, in the decisions. But yeah, it's tough. We're the biggest one. 1A is the biggest group, so we have a big voting block. But still, that's why I'm trying to get closer to A schools, just so we can cut down on some of the travel as well. So with Waldport and some of the other schools around. So.
Well, I'm hearing a lot of the bigger schools maybe even doing some shifting within leagues themselves because of enrollment numbers declining. So there's
and they're even talking about going back to like, butts and seats versus like these calculated ADMs and all that. If you can put a team out there, then there you go, So that was one of the conversations as well, going back to kind of an older version of the districting classification. So yeah.
Gotcha.
Good
okay,
question.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I wanted to just thank you for moving forward with getting a student council of student government going, because I know we've talked around and around here at the board level about getting student representation to the board, and what it finally came out was that we need to have a student government first. And I just want to thank you for getting that moving, because that's something that we kind of needed to happen to help with one of our priorities. And you said you're still working out bylaws, and I was just curious what the selection process might look like, if that's been worked out yet or not.
Yeah, well, first off, you can thank Ricky, because she was the one that brought it to me. She was like, hey, we used to do this. I'm like, yes, I'm fully on board with that. So, and she could probably, but we've worked on quite a few things as far as working on selection, putting some, criteria in place for attendance and grades, and you have to have some teacher recommendations and maybe those kinds of things. You might have to write a paper. So we're still kind of putting that stuff in place. So we're hoping that we can. The kids have already gotten excited about it, so we've already heard, that, oh, I want to run for this and I want to do that, So if we can get it in place this year, that would be great. But it may end up being that we get all of the paperwork done and get it presented. Then next year we can start fresh right at the start of school with that as well. So hopefully we've been kind of working on it, but we want to make sure it's right and not just kind of thrown together as well. So, but yeah, thank Miss Hendricks for that. That was her idea of bringing that back to it. So
Thank you, guys.
All right, you got peppered tonight, Mr. Harris. Thank you for.
no, that's great. Appreciate it. Sorry it took me so long to get here.
Oh, you were right on time for us, so thank you. There are some staff members here this evening to do the educational spotlight smart reading program. Does board have any concern with allowing them to jump ahead in the agenda and present to us now? So that they can be off for the evening?
That'd be fine. Is that okay with you? Mr. Staley might want to be off for the.
Oh,
Mr. Shelley, is that, can we
He's
let them,
stuck.
can we let them give their presentation? Thank you. All right. For that, I think we have.
Miss Littlefield, Miss Shondell, and Miss, is there any way, Laura, that you could make me a host and I can present the thing for everybody to see online?
Ooh.
You right click on her probably.
Yeah, except she's not. Yeah. Can you go into the book?
Yeah.
Zoom?
Details joint meeting.
There you go.
How do I get now to their handout? So back.
Just get me church next 3 hours.
Okay.
Put the slide to the slide.
Mine is mute.
We're getting the feedback, so maybe Christette or board can mute. Just one of you.
This thing is going nuts.
Real soon.
I
Yeah.
got it over the counter today. I'm like,
Everybody
why
hear
are
me
we
still?
going crazy? I don't usually. I need to.
So you're good, you're good. I know.
And now my watch is going up saying, hi to Rick. Yeah.
Get ready.
There it is. Gonna remember.
This is what that new maybe equipment's for, right?
I hope so. Okay, can everybody see? Okay.
Yep.
So Miss Shondell, Miss Ricky, and Miss Sarah, the floor is yours.
All right, so tonight I'm just trying to see the screen a little bit better. Hold on just a moment. So we have started doing the Smart Reading program at the LC School with our kindergarten and first graders. Ricky has been kind enough to lend us her leadership kids for a period every week, usually a Tuesday or Wednesday. It alternates depending on whether kindergarten has a library trip or not. What the Smart Reading program is. Smart Reading stands for Start Making a Reader Today. It's a program that was started back in 1992, I believe, up in the Portland area, and it has slowly made its way across the state. It ties together two critical components, which are having one-on-one, a child to have somebody to read with one-on-one, and access to books. Smart Reading does both of those. Here you'll see some photos of some of our great leadership kids with our readers. Every other week, our big kids will send home our youngsters with a brand new book of their own. And yeah, there's been some great relationships built between the kids. I think everybody looks forward to it. And so far this year, here's some of our stats. We've got a late start, later than I would have liked. Mostly I'd say that was my fault, just learning the new program. Next year, I'd like to have it up and running by mid-October. This year, I think we started in February, of all things. But even since February, we've managed to give away 76 books to our kindergarten and first graders. And, you know, it's not like we have a whole bunch. We've got about 14 of them, or 13, 14. So yeah, it's been pretty good. Let's see. Yeah, this year, like I said, it's been our leadership kids and another student from the yearbook who has also been assisting. Next year, we're hoping to expand it onto our second graders and also see if we can find some community members that would like to come in and get involved. If you happen to know anybody interested, please have them contact me or Miss Shondell or Miss Ricky. We'd be happy to have you.
Information to share would be helpful. I do know
Oh.
that I probably know somebody that would be interested, but I have some accessibility concerns.
Okay.
But something that we can hand out to family members that may have time to give would be really helpful with the paperwork they have to complete and all those necessary things.
That sounds wonderful. I should be getting the new materials for next year in August. So I'm set to return everything to Albany this week.
I'm available on Fridays.
I've heard several grandparents in the community say that they would be interested in coming in and being a part of small groups. And so, like I said, if we can get that information out to our community, we may have a whole lot of people interested in giving some time and dedication to our kids.
That would be wonderful. Thank you, Jamie.
Miss Shondell, do you have, you know, from your kids' perspective, what are they saying about the program?
Yeah. So what stands out most to me, having my class do this program, is it's the first time in previous schools. My classes have participated, but it has not been older kids. It's been community volunteers. And what I hear from the kids is that they're really excited to build those relationships with the older kids. And, they recognize them in the hallways because the upperclassmen come by and they go, oh, I saw my reading buddy when I went out to the water fountain. So it's really cool for them to be making those connections. And I've been really impressed. I'm just going to say, too, shout out to Ricky. I've been really impressed with the behavior of the middle school and high schoolers. They've been really responsible and like talking to the kids so nicely and respectfully. I've never had to redirect a single one. And the kids are just like, love having that attention. And the middle school and high schoolers really make them feel special and focused on, which is really cool. The other thing that I noticed is that a lot of families have reached out to me, especially as we were first starting, and saying like, my kid brought home this book, like, do they get to keep it? And they were really excited that, you know, twice a month their kid comes home with a new book. And I have to say, as a teacher, I have been very, very, very impressed with the quality of books since my first class was involved in the Smart Reading program. Many times I have on my own just seen the book and seen or heard people reading it and have purchased it for my own classroom library. They're really diverse books and really good representation. And I really dig Smart Reading's philosophy about how they choose books. It is something that has stuck in my mind about windows and mirrors for kids. So they pick out books that kids will see themselves in. So there are, I have seen books about foster kids or books about, kids who live in a trailer and things that might, kids might see themselves in more than typical children's literature. And then windows, so like perspectives into life, ways of living or cultures that they may not see or experience. So I think it has been, I'm just always really impressed with the books that are in the bins.
Just to interrupt a little bit, we do have one of our middle schoolers made such a good friend that I believe they came up with a secret handshake, which was pretty fun to see. And I think my favorite thing to hear was that middle schooler say that he had made a very new best friend, and they're pretty solid. So, seeing them see each other in the hallway is pretty awesome.
I certainly don't interrupt your presentation, but I just want to make a comment that I do think this is a little bit what everybody, the community as well, is looking for in a K through 12 school.
Yes.
Is that ability to build connections and grow our near adults into caring and empathetic, kind human beings, knowing how to nurture and care for others, and to see the examples in the hallways. So I'm super excited for this to be in place, and thank you for the three of you for doing this, but also a huge kudos to the kids engaging both from our elementary and our middle school and high school to be a part of this. They're the ones doing the work also to make this successful. So outstanding.
Yeah, it's great.
Is there anything else? I don't want to cut anybody off. I apologize. I just want to make sure that you got everything good.
I just have more kudos. My first grader loves this. Like he actually has trained me to read stories with him when they do at school. Like, no, you don't just read to me and I don't just read to you. We're gonna each read a page one after the other.
Yeah, like Sarah mentioned in the presentation, I really like that, for our like emerging readers, there's no pressure. Like my kids don't feel nervous about it. Like, oh man, my high schooler is going to come in and make me read. It really is just listening. But very often I do see them saying like, oh, can I read this next page? Or I want to try, or, like being creative and imagining things, like adding to it has been really cool. And I would like to, I see that the middle school and high schoolers have been trying to ask them like some comprehension questions, which I thought was really cool and impressive. And so my goal is for next year, come up with like a little guide or some kind of thing for them to guide them in that, and like the kinds of concepts that we're learning about to support comprehension in the classroom this year.
Next year, hopefully it'll go a little smoother, though. I'm more familiar with the training. So that should hopefully help the kids with those what happens next questions.
All right, well, if that is everything, let's just thank you so much for presenting to us and bringing this to our attention. I'm looking forward to the wrap up at the end of the year.
Thank you, guys.
All right, financial statements, Mr. Stanley. Thank you for letting everybody jump the line.
More important. Statements are in front of you, but we can discuss other things other than.
You should have your microphone first.
I would like to do that.
See, I wasn't gonna say anything in the very beginning.
Well, I was going to push it, and I figured, and then I forgot. Focusing on the state civil support has been a traumatic experience. We're kind of in the perfect storm in that they finalized the 23-24 figures.
Are there
No,
two?
they're the same.
Oh,
I just wanted to cover.
Yeah, and I'm gonna go over the statements and then I'll go over, I don't know, I don't think I have what you have handed out, that sheet. Maybe I missed it.
They're the same.
Plan.
Oh,
It's just
that
one.
one. I do have
I
that
have
one. I have it. I thought it was something else. We're in the kind of the perfect storm, on April 29th, which is after our first budget meeting. And after their initial projections for 25-26, they sent out the finals for 23-24. And they've always done it that way. However, numbers switched on there, and the number was the figure on the excess IEP above the 11% that we've been using. And to my chagrin, I have asked about that number before, and it's impossible to calculate. So I've always assumed the numbers they give us are correct. Krista and I learned differently. I don't think I could ever compute it, and I'm still somewhat confused on how they get to it, but that's my problem. However, what's happened is, and going back in history, is when we did the budget for 24-25, this number was 2.3. Good number. Then in June, they switched the number for that IEP in excess up to 25. And it's based on your MOE, which they don't even use MOE, but it's based on MOE, we learned, and it's based on your relationship to other school districts. It's based on your cost per student, and it's based on your poverty.
Well, and it's also based on the level of severity of your
Kids.
IEPs.
It's multiple. And so I just assumed the number was correct. However, for a whole year, that number has been 25.3. And the way they do it, I've tried to explain, and then we'll go over the numbers. The number that they have created from 23-24, they just continue on your projections for 24-25 and 25-26. It's not a new number that you calculate each year. It's up to us to figure it. And I don't know how to figure it. But so they used 2.3 to start with, and which I did in the budget, and then they changed it to 25.4. So I've been using that for all my projections and for the 25-26, which they had used in the budget on the sheet. If you went to the ODE, it's 25.3. Well, when the final estimate came out for 23-24, which you have the information in there, and I knew we were going to be paying $87,000 back for the 23-24, and that is because we had collected more funds, and I've been sharing that throughout, that we were going to be paying back, and the figure is $87,000. And they've already taken that out of our state. They've already withheld it out of our LGIP because they've overpaid us. Everything's a prepayment until you get your audit. You have to understand everything is a prepayment. All the numbers are estimates until audits in everything. So you're hopefully monitoring all the way through. And I'll have Krista go over the IEP, but I want to give you the history. So we get to that, and then all of a sudden I look at the number, and the new number is way less. And of course I have a heart attack. And because it dominoes, and ALSI is in a perfect storm in that you're always relying on the prior ADMW, your declining district. If I was in Canby, 23 wouldn't mean anything because you might get it more in students or wherever, because when you have 6,000 kids or a 10,000 ADMW, 25 doesn't mean anything. But when you only have 222 kids, it's a big thing. And so going through that, I was afraid to type to Krista and how it was going to impact, because it's really my error. I thought I asked, I've never, but you know, it's like dealing with, and we met with the ODE on that, but I think we have a little salvation on that because I'll explain that, but I wanted Krista to go over the IEP. The numbers that you see in here regarding 22, 23, 24, where I show are the final numbers that were there. And I want to go over that before Krista,
Which are we on your report?
on my report.
Okay.
And
What page?
that would be on, I don't have the numbers because the one I got does not have numbers, but it would be this sheet right here.
Page 5.
Page 5.
Okay. And what I did was I put in what we had at 4/1 and then what happened on 4/29. And you'll notice that it's that famous IEP number went from 25.4 down to 2.3. And I think the final one is 3.8, but on here it's 2.3. And what's interesting, I budgeted it on 2.3, but then they changed it on me. You'll see the IEP above the 11%. And so the impact that number has in 23-24 carries over to 24-25 because you're using the high ADMW. And so you're declining each year. So that number impacted 24-25, and it'll impact 25-26. You follow how it's a domino. If we were a flat district, it wouldn't matter, but we are a declining district. So the real impact on that is $200 and some thousand, that loss. So that 200,000 was just not in 23, 24. It was also in 24, 25. And then it has somewhat of an impact in 25, 26. The 100,000 in transportation, I adjusted that because our transportation costs were not $1 million, and I didn't want to have to pay back $100,000. So all districts put new numbers in, and that's why I always thought the number for the 25.4 was a good number, but it wasn't. So compared to budget, and I've reflected that throughout the months, we're 229,000 less than budget because we budgeted 295 kids, and there was no way we were getting 295 kids. And so we're at right now 222.13. That's the ADM. What they do is they take the January ADMW that Laura puts in, and they compare to the previous year, and they do the ratio on that, and that's roughly where we will be at the end of the year. But again, I can't say it enough that the 24, 25 numbers are only estimates again, because it's depending on the formula. The number 2.3373180123 down there, you see that long number? The ratio number, that number is determined strictly by everybody's audited figures, the available dollars, and they divide the ADMW in that to get the ratio. So if other districts are way off or way under, that number will go either way. It depends on the transportation costs too, because they subtract the transportation costs out before they allocate the education. It's not a fixed number, and that's why you see business managers quitting a lot, because the number floats. And I thought I understood it totally, 1,000,000% on the IEP, but I guess I didn't. So this is where we are. 324 is final. We've paid the $87,000 back, which I've known. And those are all audited figures. They tie to our records and everything, and I agree with all those. the 24-25 is only an estimate again. Because when we put our audited figures in, the attendance figures and all the formulas, those ADMWs might change again. And so then they do the calculation and they make the next projection will come out next year, and we won't get that payment until May of there. So that leads us to how do we budget for 25-26? Because they adjust numbers throughout the year, and I did the budget based on what they gave us in March, and it changed on us. So now we have a different number that I know, which has gone down, but I think we have somewhat of a savior on that because it kind of watch. But I want Krista to go over what we learned today, or what she learned. She can explain it to me later.
One of the things is some of these numbers, a lot of these numbers are actually based on the audits that districts turn out. And one of the things we learned today is we know OD has a deadline. And we all work to get to the deadline, but there are some districts who don't turn in their audits by the deadline. So then they can never give us the actual numbers
Until
every district turns in their actual audit numbers. So, for example, there is a school district that we know of this year who did not turn in their audits till last week.
their
So-
state school support is held until they get the audit in, but they might have enough cash reserves to put it off. And I know one of the districts because I worked with them. And that was quite an ordeal there. But my question to the ODE, and I know them, is just because they haven't got their information in, why aren't you putting estimates in based on what their historic is and do a calculation so we aren't blindsided because of the error of other districts? And Mike listened to us. He wrote me an email. He heard me clear because I was hyper. And first time to him, but I still don't understand when they are doing the numbers and sending it out to all the districts. It's not about me. It's not about that I made an error. What it is to me is how are you communicating to new business managers who know nothing, relying on those numbers and could impact a school district? Just not LC, it's the 199 school districts. That's my issue. And that was what I was trying to communicate to him, because we will get through that. But
There are
other districts,
like Newburgh.
Newburgh, Silverton,
Did
I
not.
can go right down. There's been about 5 or 6 of them this year. And so,
Can you find like what kind of a rock bottom number would be? And like based on our lowest possible ADM to keep our doors open and what the lowest percentage could be, and you budget on the lowest possible, and any extra is the bonus?
We kind of do
we
that,
do.
but it is still like we budget pretty conservatively, but it's pretty hard to do that because of just shifting people coming in and out.
Do you want to
So
go over this?
I want to go over this. ODE actually gave us.
I think this is a
today.
learning tool for you too.
And actually, after we met with ODE and Costa was there, Costa actually asked for this particular slide, not with our data, but so other districts can use it. So what happened was in 21-22, you can see that our ADMR was quite high. The percentage of IEPs based on our ADMR was about 12.2%, which put us 11 over the IEP weight. When we talk about severity, they said, there were about 10 different things that if a student has an IEP, they consider it more severe than others. And so that gets a little bit, tell me if I'm correct, it gets a little bit more weight than per se something lower. So we had a lower proportion of students with more costly diagnoses. Our revenue funds, you can see there, our expenditures. So we were very far over our revenue. So that's why we were lower in terms of that 2.3, I believe. But when you compare it to the states.
Yeah,
Go
can
ahead.
I say, remember the figures that they had, the 25.4 was based on not 23, 24, but was based on 22, 23. So when we're budgeting 24, 25, we're really using the number from 22, 23, and we were in a declining, which I never understood. I always thought they adjusted accordingly, and the number they're using for 24, 25 is 22, 23.
And what do we know happened in 22, 23?
We lost learn at home.
Because we knew that if you didn't go down to a certain level, that we would lose our in-person. And so what happened is when that ADMR, you can see, it pretty much cut in half. But the percentage of IEPs did not. It actually went up because the ADMR cut in half, but the IEP numbers stayed the same. So we instead went from 11 to 34 over that weight. And there was a higher proportion of students with more costly diagnoses. So things like developmentally delayed autism, those things tend to be a little bit more costly is what they did. However, because our ADMR went down, our SSF revenue for special education went down, but you can tell our expenditures did not. So then we were 167% over our revenues. And so that's where I believe that bigger number kicked in. That's where the 25.4 came in, because that number from 60 to 167, when you then looked at how everybody else across the state looked, we were higher than a lot of people. And so that's where that 25.4 kicked in, because they said you're one of the highest, so we're going to give you one of those higher numbers. And then you go to 23, 24, and you can see we dropped again in ADMR. Our percentage of IEP numbers dropped, and then our number of IEPs over the weight dropped, but then our severity also dropped. You can see that our revenues went down, and then the expenditures, which that is your MOE, correct?
Right.
So you can see our MOE went down. So our percentage didn't go, our percentage wasn't as high as the year before. So that percentage then put us at a lower rate.
And that's
So
where they made the adjustment.
That's the adjustment between the 167 over revenues to 110. And it all has to do with that declining enrollment. We had been told go back and look, and maybe there were things that were coded wrong, but because we already have given our actuals and our audits, we can't go back and fix it. There could have been some coding wrong in the 22-23 school year for the 80 or for the expenditures, which is the
And like I told Krista, we don't want to go back and do that. We've been working with the ODE to get our MOE down.
Yeah.
Why would we even attempt to do that? Because we finally have got to there, but they've adjusted everything to the 23-24 for the audit. So now we're back to the 3.8. And I would like to go on this sheet.
Yeah, so the next page.
I would like to go on this sheet.
Yeah, so then Dawn went through, and you can see when you use the 3.325, when the IEP is above 11%, you can see that we used to develop the 25.4 for the budget, but then when on 4/29 we got this 3.8, so there was a change of 21.6. So remember, we're going to estimate that each point is about $10,000.
Yeah, and what I want you to do is go, what the grace to this is, I did not put in the budget the small schools adjustment, which I believe is going to be higher. Now remember, they won't make the final payment for 25, 26 until 26, 27, and the estimates for the remote elementary and the small high school will strictly be based off the 24, 25 number. It's an advance. So to do the budget correctly, we're using 3.8. That's the latest number that we have from the ODE. The 55.01 is a figure that I put in there. We budgeted 38.82, but I want you to go to this sheet here.
The last sheet.
Okay. The ADMW by grade level at the end of the third quarter that Laura's put in is there's 186 students or 186 ADMW for grades K through 8, which is 9 grades. And then your small high school, you have 47 ADMW. You see those two numbers? For 25-26, we're looking at 170. This is the numbers we put in that Krista, hopefully we get more than this. And 52 or 222 kids. That's what our state school support is based on, the 222 right now. When it comes in at 210, we lose 12 kids. So it's going to be based on the higher of the two again. You're another declining, so it's going to be based on 24, 25 figures. They take those numbers, and I had them look at it today after my hyperness. And you'll notice for 24, 25, they have a formula there that they use, and I've got that from them, and that's what I've been using, and they checked it. The small school adjustment for 24, 25, if everything stays the same, for the elementary, it'll be 55 additional ADMW, and for the secondary or the high school, small high school will be 50. And that's for 24, 25. Now that won't be paid until 25, 26. For budgeting purposes, you want to use the 24, 25 figures, because remember, it won't be paid in, because they're paying in advance. You don't want to use what you want to project for 25, 26, because they won't adjust it until 26, 27. Do you follow the nightmare as an accountant? And so what I have done here is I put the 55.01 in, even though their sheets don't show it. The 55.01 is what we're estimating will be our small school adjustment that they will be making an advance on, because they will make adjustments throughout the year, and hopefully it comes to the 55.01 or around there. Even though when you get the audit done the next year, it'll be 62.73, because it won't be until the next year they make the final. You follow how it's what you have multiple numbers from multiple years. You're only getting in advance, and then you only get final in May of the subsequent year.
So what I'm hearing you say is we had that projected loss of the 220 some thousand.
For this year.
And next year's to be projected at 58,000.
58 compared to what I submitted it during the proposed budget.
Okay. If nothing changes.
If nothing, well, I hope you get, if you get 5 more kids, you've covered the 50,000.
Okay.
Is that?
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
So we thought it would be the 22, but then he caught, as we were working through it today, he's like, hold on, I got the remote elementary. So the hit would only be 50.
So
Okay.
on the page that's in our board books where it says 229,503,
That's
we're
this year.
actually, but that's what this is.
Yeah,
25.
because we
So
had the
we're
meeting-
actually thinking that's
We had the
only gonna
meeting
be-
today and went over everything with the
58,000.
ODE. I did this before the
Yes.
meeting,
Yeah.
Right.
then went over all the numbers with the ODE.
So that adjustment. is
Yeah.
a small schools
And
thing.
so I just wanted to make sure how my formulas were. Again, like she said, she put a qualifier. You know the numbers better than me, what's going to attend. However, your calculations are correct based on what you've provided me.
So I think the big lesson we've learned is everybody needs to be correct. Everybody in the state needs to be correct in getting their numbers in.
Well, here's the issue is if I'm a district that has no fund balance,
Mhm.
100,000,
Big deal.
it's a big deal,
Yeah.
right? And I've said this before, you have the fund balance, but you need to plan how to use it and also have the cushion in case something comes in that you don't know. And
Will there be an offset? So if that district submits the report and it significantly changes something, would they turn around and give us money back?
No.
So.
How can we be held
No,
accountable?
wait. Everything's in advance. So when everybody gets their audits in
Yeah.
and all the
Good, yeah.
numbers in, then they do the final calculation and that's when they give you money or subtract money.
They could.
Yeah, they do
You
the
get
final.
extra, you lose.
Okay.
Yeah.
You lose.
You have to think the
So
property
it
taxes
just
are only in
really frustrating.
advance on your formula.
To be at the,
Well, and there have been districts where
Mercy.
this has changed like this, and they're like, we don't have the fund balance, we have to cut immediately. You know, we have this balance, and I would say, you know, we need to plan ahead and also keep a cushion. Especially in declining enrollment, these things could happen. We just, you know, like today, again, we looked at them and said, if we can't figure out how you find this number, we take your numbers and we are estimating because we think they're
Yeah.
they're what we need. Now, the big thing they said to us is, well, you were in a unique situation. You hit the perfect storm because of, you can see the declining enrollment.
yeah.
So our hope, you know, like is next year when I do this, we'll add another one to see where we're at. But I mean, I said, can I please have your mathematical equation? And they're like, well,
Well, I asked them where they got, I was trying to figure the revenue because I wanted to tie it to the penny for the special ed. And they said they know, they just take it at a point in time. They couldn't do it. So everything is a calculation based on estimates and nothing is final until May of the following year. So when we're budgeting, it's
Don't even,
it's an estimate. And like I told Krista, we're not changing the proposed budget because you might get 5 more kids. It's monitoring it during the year to see where you are and make the adjustments during the year if it goes down or whatever.
but this is an even larger point to the fact that we really need to get to where we're operating within our budget.
Well,
and
I've
saving
always,
those reserves.
as you use
for-
your cash, pretty soon your expenses have to match your revenues. Totally, 100%.
Yeah.
and I think, you know, where we're at in terms of revenue, or where we're in for our beginning and ending fund balance, it is high. I mean, our beginning and fund balance is almost twice as much as our budget. But I do think this is a good case in point of why you keep, I would say 500,000 in the bank or $1 million in the bank to do that piece. And so, you know, we are gonna have to, in the next couple of years, this board is gonna have to make decisions on how do we live within our means.
Yeah.
You know, we've talked about it, but this is, like I said, this was one of those where we are lucky that we can cover the difference. There are districts who do not.
But I don't think it's a time we should be saying we need to take the next couple years to live within our means. We need to live within our means.
Yeah.
Period.
So we wanted to show this to you because we didn't want it to be blindsided.
Yeah, and I just want to say one more thing. You see the 55, if it does come in 62, which I think it will, if everything stays the same, well, then
It washes out.
it washes out everything. It washes out. So it's, the proposed budget is a good number
Okay.
compared to everything we have. At first, it wasn't. I was having a heart attack until we went through everything today. But that's just the way life is. What's that?
Let's take it out of the contract.
Oh, you can.
But
You actually like could have just started with this.
no, he was in Hawaii and I was in Arizona, and I get a text at like 10 in the morning. So it was at 7 in Hawaii that said, what did you say? SSF issue.
I said I'm not catching the next plane.
I'm not coming home. Check your email. Have a good day. That's literally what it said. And I was like, I called him. I'm like, I'm not checking my email. What happened? And then we talked about this, and I was like, well, we'll come back and figure it out. But it really was easier to understand when we sat down with ODE, even though I don't necessarily agree. I understand, and I think this is why we do trainings as a state, each district, to make sure our numbers are accurate. And so, you know, it was and they said they've really never seen this before. It just happened to be the perfect storm.
Yeah.
Sure, they never have.
Yeah, I mean,
Leave it
Can
to
I go over the
Elsie.
rest of the financial statements then and make it real quick?
Yeah, thank you.
The ending fund balance, and my page has got turned around, so be patient. I'm sorry. If you turn to the end of the expenditures, there's really nothing that's changed. We're near the end of the year. Payrolls will all be done in June, so we're looking at and there's a resolution in your board packet about moving funds over there. But before that is moved, there's 7.1 million there, and we did in the budget use 6.7 because I was considering transferring the 700,000 or whatever you approve over there. So it'll be a little lower than what's in the proposed budget, but still, hopefully by the end, everything will even out. Going to the special revenues, is there any questions on the general fund? I think we've discussed it. We're closing grants. Krista is working on those, and I think everything will be pretty much done by well, they have to be done by June 30th or September 30th. A lot of the federal grants carry over to September 30th. So, and we use those dollars to cover September payrolls and various things of that nature. But the ones that are due on June 30th, we'll have the integrated guidance. Those need to be done by June 30th. And Krista will have to do her annual reports, quarterly reports. Look at her. She looks happy on those. And we're done with the third quarters already, and everything's reconciled on that. Other than that, I think it's explanatory, same as before, and we're monitoring them closely. It's that time of the year. Food service, I always give you that so you know where you're at. I'd like to hit you with that. And roughly staying the same percentage. And we've already been approved for the community eligibility program for next year. Everything's in, so that's all done. And Chris is working on that. Hopefully we increase the participation, and that would increase or lower the cost by having more. And the cost is roughly costing the district $1.65 per meal served. Okay, on that one. On the capital projects, worked with Chris and Nancy and Bren and Krista and Keenan on all those today. Just for your information, you'll notice on the capital projects, you have 220,000 remaining in there, and then on the bond, you had 50,000. We figured out today that the fire alarm was encumbered on the capital project, so we're changing that to the bond. So there's no dollars left in the bond any longer, and there's around 70,000 remaining in the capital projects. We've got everything encumbered. Chris and Nancy are still working on value engineering on and we've reconciled what's out there, but they're trying to get it down. So these numbers are where we're at right now through our books, but that doesn't include Todd Construction or some other costs, but they're trying to get the value engineering down so they lower what that cost is that needs to be covered by the transfer. And then the last but not least are your two reserves, the 30,000 that I have set aside for PERS to cover at least 1 year increase, and then the unemployment. Prior to the budget meeting, I will have a calculation on what an annual cost will be, so we might lower that or however. And so you might have sufficient dollars in there. It won't change the budget, but we'll just do it through the payroll next year. It just saves dollars that way. Other than that, that is the financial statements. I hope. Any questions?
I have a really general question, and I actually think Krista would be more equipped to answer.
Then we better wait to Krista. Is it on IEPs?
Yes.
What is the question?
It's a bit, so in here, like ODE weights IEPs and IEPs above 11%, the same, they're both 1.0. It's actually a question.
That is correct. That's part of the formula. So one thing that might happen, it's still not Zorn asked about the weight on the above IEP and the
That's
regular
just
IEP.
Setting the groundwork for my actual question.
Okay.
That has always been in the formula.
Yeah.
They're still weighted the same after you determine the first 11% is automatic. After that, it's per what we discussed. It's that formula. And so that's where we're at the 3.8 right now.
So we've been told over and over that IEPs in Oregon, you don't get reimbursed for IEPs above 11%.
You do, but you don't get reimbursed for every IEP above 11%. You get this little weight. Now, there is movement in the legislature to move that cap. We've talked about that.
Yeah, this is just maybe
Yeah.
my basic misunderstanding of the whole issue is like, why are we passing a law to fix this when it looks like they're paying us for it?
Yeah, and I can't, and to be honest with you, like I can tell you what 11% is and what will get paid, but if you said, how did you find that number above? I have no idea. It has to do with proportional pieces. And so like you can see that like on the 23-24, we're 13 above the 11%, but we're only getting a 3.8. So it has to do with how everybody else's numbers look and then they make a ratio.
Right, I was just
Yeah.
like thinking like, keep looking at, this whole discussion about IEPs above 11%. I'm like, didn't we just have like tons of discussion? We're passing a law to make sure we get paid for that. And I'm like, it looks like we're getting paid the same amount.
It
Oh,
all has
That's
to
not
do.
real.
Yeah, and so one of the things when we talked with Mike Wilfong today, there is a law, he said that they would do a no cap. I don't believe a no cap will happen. I believe they're gonna cap it. My guess would be 15% if it does. Tomorrow is the big day though for the forecast revenue. And depending on how the revenue comes in will depend on how our budgets roll. So if it's a good revenue, we probably will get the 11.36 plus a higher cap on we might even get more than 11.36 billion. I'm not saying we will, but if it's a lower revenue, we probably will get the 11.36 and nothing else. And so tomorrow is the day that we're all gonna watch our emails to see what our state economist says.
Yeah, another thing is any student above a cost of 40,000, districts get reimbursed a certain percent on that. That's called the high cost students.
And it's only right now on average, and the reimbursement depends on how many high cost students
Right.
are reported in the state. Right now, on average, the district only gets reimbursed about 29 cents per dollar.
Right.
So there are districts who have students who could cost in excess of $100,000.
Easy.
Way more than that.
And so,
Easy.
yeah,
Way more than
it's
that.
that is also numbers that are reported to the state, and so they actually ask you, and I think it's the June exit. Think, how many kids do you believe you will have, or December child find? How many kids do you believe will be high cost disability?
You submit those in January.
January, and if a lot of times people will put 0. And then when you actually put in your real cost, they'll go from 0 to 15 and it just skews everything. But that there's only this, I think it's like 35 million for high cost disability. And so they have to, when they get those numbers, then
It's
and on
the
average it's
formula.
29 cents per dollar.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Now you are all pros on the formula.
Why can't some of that be billed? Because a lot of that can be medical.
It is, but so like, for example, we can do some Medicare. However, the setup for a district our size actually would cost more to do it than it would for us just to take the hit.
I would like to thank you for your time on this and spending the time to get us the information. Very much. Thank you.
You're welcome.
When Don says he was hyper, that would not have been the word I would use.
Okay.
Thank you.
Construction and seismic report, Mr. Dickey.
Good evening.
No.
All right, I believe you all have our report, and it'll just be brief tonight. As Don mentioned, we're working on still refining that final construction cost for the seismic upgrade. The design team had worked on a number of items. Some of them weren't successful. And so we've been working through on a daily basis a number of options and digging into the numbers with the construction team. Supposed to have some revised numbers tomorrow, and I hope in the next couple of days that we'll get this settled. But in the meantime, they actually did start the locker room abatement on schedule yesterday. So that's good. They'll be done with it this week. If you're at the school, you'll see that the locker rooms are all sealed off. And then next week, Todd Construction will mobilize and they'll start demolition in the locker room. So all that early work is just going to be in the locker rooms until school's out. Then June 16th, the rest of the area gets turned over to them. We did have a bit of bad news, and I don't know if Krista shared this earlier in the board meeting, but you'll recall that there was a phase 2 seismic assessment that was submitted to the state in an application for another grant that was for the high school wing and the shop building. And that was not awarded. Evidently, it was, again, very competitive, and there isn't really any information that the engineer was able to share with us. But they will be reapplying for us at the end of this year, and there's no cost to reapply. But unfortunately, that defers any work there until 2 summers from now, if we're successful at that time. And then the final thing is the fire alarm replacement project. So that one is just waiting. They are doing some preliminary work in there. They are going to ask us if they can do some of the work in non-occupied areas just to get a jump on it. Again, just like seismic, we need all that work done before the end of August so that the school can be occupied again. So it'll be a mad dash for all the construction work this summer. So everybody's lining up for that. And that's really everything I have in my report tonight. Are there any questions?
Sounds like none this evening.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Laura, anything notable on our safety committee meeting minutes report?
No, does anybody have any questions?
Pretty simple. Just tie a rope top of that slide.
Don't jump.
Okay, let's jump into new business. We have a pretty shallow agenda. Do you mind if we just keep moving forward? On the
Let's
business?
just go.
Okay.
Do it.
So new business this evening. Our first is to take action based on our executive session. Is there a motion to consider?
I move that the board take no action and maintain attorney-client privilege on the July 12th, 2023 confidential findings and conclusions investigation report and delegate authority to the board chair to issue a letter to the Alsea School District requesting party stating that the board has determined not to waive attorney-client privilege on the report.
Thank you. There's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion be considered?
Nope.
Laura, roll call vote.
Okay. Russ,
Yes.
Jamie,
yes.
Soren,
Yes.
Christine,
Yes.
motion carries 4-0.
You. A work section topic, Alsea School District Vision. I'm gonna ask Russ if he can assist in this discussion overview for the board, and then we can go through with just setting a date. There's no vote that has to happen in this.
Yeah, so I'll be brief, even though I have done some research and Jamie and I have spoken. I also want to bring awareness. You may know, you may not know that there is oops, that's not the right one, but there is a law before Congress right now, or a bill before Congress that will make it a priority. Gosh, I email myself this stuff so I don't lose it. Let me go back to it because I had it pulled up. That actually they believe will pass. Man, I'm sorry, that was wrong button. Why is my email not working? Okay, forget it. I'm not going to tell you the law, but I will say that they are expecting, Senate already approved it 26-1. They expect Congress to approve it, that you'll be able to receive dual credits in high school for agriculture sciences. They're going to push it out, not just to rural school districts, but to the state in general, believing that it's not about curriculum, but it's about the capacity of the instruction. So I know we've talked about writing the school. Jamie and I spoke, I had this idea, but I like Jamie's idea better, honestly, after due diligence. I spoke with Oregon State University expansion. I also spoke with Oregon State University Agricultural Department. Jamie and my perspective is we would like to offer something unique in the LC school, but not limit students from believing that's the only reason to attend here. I know Krista's negative point only and Soren's is, do we lose students if we brand our school? And I think it comes down to simple language. If perchance we said LC Charter School of Agricultural Sciences, that means you're going to LC Charter School for Agricultural Sciences. But if we said LC Charter School with Agricultural Sciences or a special focus opportunity, somehow we label it differently, we're not going to take any traditional curriculum away, but we would have a unique brand. And so I spoke with the OSU Extension Office in Polk County. There is a small rural school. I left the name at home that has an agricultural program. She asked me to communicate with. I haven't spoken to them yet. And there's not many in the state there. We know that the charter school board transportation with
Oh, no,
Kings Valley.
Kings Valley has a forestry thing they did, and my original idea was like agriculture, forest. What did I say? Agricultural, or I said forestry.
It was
Something.
heavy in the forestry
Yes.
lane.
Now, looking up on the state of Oregon, with the curriculum for agricultural sciences, it was interesting to me that it falls in the CTE, which have this beautiful CTE building, and their curriculum exactly says welding and metalworking, as well as plant sciences, farm sciences, animal sciences. So in early conversations with OSU, they seem to believe that their graduate students may not be able to help us build a curriculum. We might be able to get that out of Western Oregon University because they're the teaching school. Mia's going to be attending there this fall, so that's going to be fun for me. But between the two, we could probably build a curriculum as a school over this next year that would allow us to focus on that. But OSU will allow their graduate students to come down and participate in teaching or in certain classroom activities, or allow our students to come up to OSU's agricultural department and utilize their campus for expanded learning. So the point of this conversation tonight is to simply say, we've spoken about this over the time. Jamie and I have spoken a few times over the last couple of weeks. What we'd like to do is explore for the next 60 to 90 days, as Jamie and I on the board develop some community relations and explore the opportunity deeper. Of course, a lot of this comes down to operation, right? We have to have the superintendent and the goal of the school behind us. There will be an increased cost, right? Now, with the state coming down from legislature, there may be also an opportunity to increase revenue if we can offer the dual credit for college and high school for some of these classes, maybe not every class. But that's going to be an expensive teacher. And we know right now we're out financially. So I would offer this as a person who lives in this town, as small as it is, and plans to stay here for the rest of my life and is opted to serve on the school board as a volunteer. I believe that we have a unique opportunity as a charter school to brand ourselves in a way that will increase our student enrollment, offer specialty classes in a unique way that could further our students who have grown up in an agricultural and forestry environment. We could still do some forestry in that umbrella of agricultural sciences, so that they have a better opportunity to go on to school at schools like OSU and other places, already earning credits early on. But I think more importantly, it would be a perspective that ultimately, instead of LC Charter Wolverines, we don't have to get rid of the mascot, would allow us a study of science that you really can't find very many places around us. So open for Jamie's perspective.
Yeah, I kind of took Russ's idea and thought about a conversation I recently had with my own son about how is running a piece of equipment have anything to do with agriculture. Agriculture is such a broad subject. You could go so many different directions. And when you look at where we live and the historical values that a lot of our families have, there's a lot of opportunity. We have areas that are zoned for farming that we should be maybe teaching some of those families, some of those historical ways to keep their little farms operating and the skills. And I even took it as far as maybe, you know, it was part of home ec. We should be teaching some of our off-grid canning and preserving and, you know, some of the opportunities around that sort of agriculture. I know we have a lot of resources with other parents in the community that offer urban agriculture, small space agriculture. I mean, that's pretty remarkable as well. Like somebody right here in town could have a pretty substantial garden and feed their family and lower expenses for our families here in town. Not to mention if we offered some of those things at our district, we could be supporting our community and school with some of those food costs. I personally think our unique opportunity is the fact that we're in the process of our strategic plan. Now is a perfect time to entertain the idea, to talk about it, and we're already talking about where do we want to see our school in the next 10 years. Well, let's brand it too. We're writing, what is the portrait of a graduate? What is, all of those things. Now's the time to have the conversations. Now's the time to get the community's input and really see where we can really give ourselves a positive step up.
Yes, and I did find it. So I emailed Laura, the government. Now, also I missed this on my screen, but Oregon Farm to School and School Gardening Curriculum Resources is also there. So if we did do this curriculum, we could actually have our kids. I would imagine we would at some point get a grant to get a greenhouse, right? But we could also work right up the road with Gathering Together Farms. They grow so much indoors, and I have a relationship there with the owner. We have the Time Garden relationship with that owner. I've actually worked with the Gathering Together Farms for the Gleaners for 3 years. So there's so much opportunity, but the Oregon actually has our whole farm to school and garden curriculum resources. So I'm sending this to Laura to disperse out to the board. And then the Oregon bill, just because I pulled it up and I don't want to be silly. That's the wrong one. But anyways, I sent her it, and the agricultural food natural resources. So anyway, Jamie, I love that you brought up strategic plan because I forgot. That's why we talked. Anyway, anything else? Any questions?
Well, I do love the Oregon Farm to School. I will tell you there are grants for that. However, the problem becomes for us is that we don't cook the stuff we don't have a kitchen to do it. So I think this would tie well with us trying to get that kitchen in my previous district. Dawn, do you remember we did the Oregon Farm to School? We didn't get a lot of money. It was like $1,500. But like, for example, we went and we were able to purchase local tuna, or we were able to purchase blueberries. We actually had a farmer or a rancher. They actually donated a Jersey cow, and that paid for the cut and wrap. So we got like 900 pounds of ground beef. And so it's really great there. I think our next step would be then we need to get the kitchen so we could do things like canning. Because right now we don't have the capacity to do it, but I see where you're going. It's a great program. We did it for years. And the curriculum's great because it was when we bought the food, we actually then had the people we bought it from come in and talk to the kids about it. Or we did field trips to the blueberry farms.
Well, and you just look at the vast variety of agriculture opportunities in Oregon, right? We have forestry that's big and strong in our neck of the woods, a lot of private landowners and a lot of logging. What about the agriculture of winemaking and beer and hops? And I mean, there's so many things.
You don't have to make the wine, but you can grow the grapes.
Well, Yamhill Carlton actually has their own vineyard. Yamhill Carlton does.
Well, and I'm just thinking, literally right here, I'm going this weekend to buy all of my garden starts from our local, greenhouse right here next door to the school. We have so many people in our community with this passion that would just, I think.
And in talking to OSU, for example, the idea would be what they say the small schools doing.
I remember what it is.
Yeah, I wrote it down.
Okay, you'll send it to me.
It's on a little paper.
Okay.
Yes, I will. Is they typically do, so they would do like plant sciences 1, plant sciences 2, and alternating years, right? And then whatever it is, runs a year, and they roll their kids through those segments. So freshman, sophomore, and then junior, senior. I think it's very doable. What I also believe is there is this understanding and awareness now, even at the state level, that ag is Oregon, right? We've tried to make Portland Oregon, but Portland is not Oregon. Oregon is really agriculture and forestry. And we have a lot of kids leaving school, going into those fields, but they're really just going in because of what they learned at home, and that's great. But I think it would be a fun way. And I mean, granted, I think Jamie and I are both pretty passionate, but it will take, I mean, and even what I told OSU, right? This isn't something that's gonna launch in 25, 26, right? I think if we had a really ascertainable goal that was aggressive, it would be 26, 27, and it may not be ready, right? But I believe it can.
Well, I think what you and I talked about, Russ, is that by not having the conversation,
Yeah.
Right.
it's sitting back and it just puts another nail in the door.
Right.
Okay,
Right,
but you know what I mean?
But
it's
we're
like-
right, we're just
but
not getting
we-
anywhere.
But then when is it too late to, when is that like, okay, now it's too late to do that? And, or now we're coming from behind rather than coming from ahead with new ideas and things like that. So that was where kind of the work session topic kind of came in.
Exactly.
And so I just want to, just for my understanding, are we still wanting to schedule a work session where we can come, like, have all these documents? Because you guys have done a ton of research.
Yeah, and I would
And
really
about- but
like
then
to
also-
plan it out in a way that we could have a member or two from OSU come, or maybe,
Okay.
you know, a student, grad student or something. But I mean, I think if we have a work meeting first, that'd be great. And then work to the process of what we ultimately want. And then I can reach out again to them and see if they're willing to participate.
Well, I was thinking, what if we took a step back? So King Valley did this, and you said there's another.
Well, Kings Valley partnered with, like, they got a big grant from a logging company
Right.
and they have their forestry thing going.
Okay.
So they're focused on forestry, but.
Well, what I was curious about was, could they provide us, or would they be able to help us outline what their process looked like? Like, what was the goal that came out of each, like, kind of segmented area?
Yeah.
So then maybe we had a strategic or I don't want to confuse. a
Right,
strategic
and
plan in this
actually,
word, but like, then we would have maybe.
this page
a-
right here that I sent, this agricultural food natural resources page, which is. I sent it to Laura.
Oh, okay, perfect. No,
I didn't want to send it out to each of
No, no,
you,
no.
so I'll just have her send it out. But it actually goes through like the applicable to all careers in agriculture cluster. Like, it goes through everything, but there's already an Oregon plan, which is what.
That's what I was,
Yeah.
okay, so.
And it actually says like sector skills are one. The only reason I didn't really share a lot about it, because it's really operational. That would have to be built at the school level, but definitely we can talk about it. There's a lot out there. And of course, this is like Jamie and I, you know, we talked that day, but this is like your synopsis view of where we'd like to go.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think we couldn't have a work session within the next week, or we need a few weeks so that we can really get more information. I mean, what do
Well,
you?
I was kind of wondering, because you guys have done this, could you?
Yeah,
Are
we
we
can
allowed
work.
to
with-
delegate our duties of,
Yeah.
handing off agenda? I guess what I was thinking.
No, this
was-
is like the committee thing I talked with,
Yeah.
our state USDA guy.
Yeah.
Why am I drawing a blank on his name?
It's
Vince, yeah.
Yeah, that'd be
He said,
awesome.
no, you can have a committee where you say like, Russ and Jamie will be on the committee to do this.
But do we wanna have a work session first with like the
Sure.
board, talk about like, what would be the goals and outcomes of like each kind of stage? And
Yeah,
what that would look like and how that would.
well, because I think
I mean,
too,
it gives us more time to actually dive into this whole plan than at a,
Right.
because that's what you and I had chatted about.
Yeah.
well, and I think too, like, we need to get Mr. Stevens on, because our program of study is ag and natural resources, and we do plant science and things like that. You know, and maybe this would be like, great, we've done these things, and this allows him and I went to work on different resources that maybe we don't, know that's available. So maybe if we do the work session, it would be great to maybe invite Mr. Stevens.
And
Oh,
we can invite him at the very beginning even too,
Can,
right?
yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the other question I had was, would the board like to take public comment at the work session? It is not a requirement to take public comment at a work session, but it is an allowed
Yeah, I
process.
mean, I'm not.
So would we like to open it for public comment for them to give us public comment before we dive into a work session?
When you say they, who do you mean?
They, the community.
Oh,
They, the
okay.
community. So anybody who's not at the table, usually we don't open it to public comment, but it's allowed to.
I think that's a good opportunity.
Yeah.
And
I
it
think
wouldn't
I
necessarily
think
be-
we would be highly unsuccessful if we didn't have a majority of the community.
I agree.
So I'm not opposed to having community comment and involvement, because truly the community is, I mean, I wish more people in the community believe the school was the community. It's our biggest employer in this tiny town. It really is our community. So yeah, I think that would be a great idea. In fact, I've had some loose conversations with people about, would you be interested in being involved in this process? And I think there is some interest out there.
So yes to public comment. clarification, that's not public interaction necessarily, they'd just be able to give us, and then we dive into our work session. Mr. Stevens, you'd like to have him?
Yeah, in fact, that was early on in our conversation, that we've like already hired a teacher for kind of this purpose, which would really help us.
Yeah, because we don't want to do a bunch of work and have them come and be like, you're stepping on my toes, I don't want to do this.
Well, and I think it's
Well,
more of like
This isn't really,
resource.
this isn't really about teaching. This is about saying, if we're able to say, brand our, what resources around the region could we utilize to help bring in funds, materials, educational resources, and off-site teaching, right? Because obviously first year, we're probably not gonna be able to construct all the things we want for this program, but if we can go to these other places on, you know, a monthly basis, once a month or twice a month, it could be a great learning environment. So,
Well, everybody look at your calendars.
yeah, so the calendars are horrible. No, I'm just joking.
I know.
As long as we can get past, I mean, May is my busiest month of the year work-wise right now, but,
I'm gonna be honest, I think we gotta get past the June.
yeah, I was gonna say, if we could get past graduation,
Could we do like maybe, is this something maybe we want to do in July?
yeah. I mean,
That would be
Just
really
slow,
good.
like,
Yeah,
I feel
yeah,
like That might
because-
be a good one.
Because with graduation, I got a daughter graduating college, one high school. I mean, yeah, let's do July. Let's just, because we have time,
We can
like
do
I
it.
said.
I hate to offer a Saturday in the summer, but we do have some Saturdays in the summer, or we could do like an earlier evening one on a weekday, maybe, if everybody could make that work. I don't know if that looks like everybody's work
I think July 5th. No, I'm just joking.
No.
I think, yeah, I'm willing to do, you know, a Saturday in summer if you want, if that involves, if that makes work. What about Mr. Stevens? I mean, do you think you'd rather?
Oh, yeah, that's about, would it be easier?
Well, I can talk to him about his interest in coming. I don't, you know,
He
he
can always
drives every,
participate by Zoom.
he could, he has to, he lives in Lincoln, so we'd have to see.
We could do it at his house.
He probably could.
Um,
But why don't we look, I'll talk to, can somebody send me an email and I'll start the conversation with him this week?
we could just pick a date by email if you want. Or do you want?
Laura, could you send us a survey for a couple weekday, like couple, what, can you remind me
I
what
would
your
say-
bad days are for surgery?
Oh, it's changed.
Is that hard?
It's every single week now. So don't
Oh,
worry.
okay.
But I would say as long as we can't do the July 4th weekend, right? Because the 4th's on a Friday this year, so it would either be the 11th, 12th, 12th's a Saturday, Friday's the 11th.
I can't do the 19th.
The 11th weekend is the one weekend that I totally can't. I rarely see.
What if we did it, like, what if we
A
did it like
weekday would be
June- What if
good.
we did it like the
Weekends.
last week of June? I mean, is that like June 27th, 6th? Oh, okay.
Sorry.
I think a weekday is gonna be
In the
more
evening?
beneficial in an early evening, a 6 o'clock time frame.
When do our new school board, when is the,
July 1st.
that's July 1st, so
Because
let's do
they'll
it
be
after
sworn
that.
in on July 8th.
Okay, oh.
That's
the
your
school
second.
board meeting is
That's your
the
second,
8th.
yep.
All right, let's do it after that.
So what if we look at like
14th.
maybe the 14th is a Monday? So Laura, could you send out, let's do that. What, could you send out a Zoom? Or not a Zoom, sorry, like a survey monkey for like the 14th, 21st. And 28th to have us be able to look into our family calendars and things like that for the summer. See what we have availability on in those 3
Yeah, I
weeks.
should be able to do any of those. We're not on vacation in June.
We'll compile you, we can just data points, and then yes, if she gets the dates and we can all decide by email, that's really fine.
Yeah.
Okay. That was great. Thank you guys so much for your work on all this. All right, our next topic is the resolution to transfer to capital projects funds.
Oh, no, it's fine. Is there a
Do you want to
motion?
give a little bit, sorry, Krista, can you give a little bit of a report of motion?
So remember, this is the 700,000 that's unappropriated, correct, Mr. Saley? That we're just moving into capital projects.
It's an appropriation already approved through the budget process, but during the budget process, we said that we would make the transfer based on the board approval of the amount. And so, this resolution to move it over there to the capital project, so it could be used to cover the additional costs on the, various projects that's happening, hopefully not using all of them.
I move to accept resolution 25-07, resolution to transfer funds to capital project funds fiscal year 24-25 as presented.
Second that motion.
Further discussion? Laura, roll call vote.
Lauren,
Yes.
Jamie,
Yes.
Russ,
Yes.
Christine.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
All right, we have no old business. We have no first or second readings. Any board comments this evening? For agenda items. List of dates. So here we go. Budget committee meeting is May 20th at 6 p.m. Memorial Day, no school, May 26th. Another budget committee meeting, if necessary, will be May 27th at 6 p.m. Senior banquet, May 28th at 6 p.m. School will be in session Friday, May 30th. We'll have a strategic planning meeting on June 3rd at 4:15. Community event choir concert, June 4th at 5 p.m. High school graduation, June 6th at 7 p.m. School board meeting, June 10th at 6 p.m. And the last day of school for K through 12, the June 12th at 12:35 for an early release. That is everything. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Oh, end of meeting at 8:31.
I might, but is that
We just need a quorum. Board members to go with the budget. committee.
The vote will happen at the June,
We accept it at the meeting.
board meeting.
So just keep that.
3 of us is.
I'll try it out.
It's just, that's like, that's,
3 of us is a quorum, so, but if you could,
I will try to be here. I just will say that's the day that. That's the place. However, I'll try to do better this year. And, but there's a lot of family, dynamics there too, so I just know it doesn't normally ever go.